Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm John Sagle. I'm a deputy executive director with Customs and Border Protection that has oversight of the agriculture program. Just a little bit of a foundational start here, just for those who are kind of newer to this venue of Customs and Border Protection in this realm. Dating back to 2003, when the Department of Homeland Security was set up, there was a merging of existing authorities and different administrations or groups within the government that merged into one foundational unit of CBP. You had, of course, your Immigration Naturalization Service, your U.S. Customs Service, and you also had the Plant Protection and Quarantine inspectors, all at ports of entry working under those groups. The Homeland Security Act transferred select authorities to the Department of Homeland Security from USDA, largely for the realm of this venue, the Animal and Plant Health Protection Acts. With that, we have a few different faces at the border. You have Border Patrol agents within Customs and Border Protection. They cover all of the land and open space between ports of entry. They're largely doing customs and immigration work, though we do have work with them in terms of securing any kind of risks or threats that occur there. But also we have the Office of Field Operations. Those are the blue uniforms. I'm not sure how much you can see. Within that realm, there's two different kind of series of employees. There's CBP officers, same uniform as what I wear, but they carry a firearm and they carry the customs and immigration authorities. And then there's a group of about a little over 2,700 of us across the ports of entry to the United States that are CBP agriculture specialists. Our core mission is the Animal Health Protection Act and the Plant Health Protection Act enforcement. We carry those authorities, and that is our core function. So very germane to your industry and what we're doing here, we're working very lockstep with Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service to address this risk, but all foreign animal disease exclusion efforts along with the plant side as well. When I speak of ports of entry, this can encompass land borders from cargo and person crossings to airports with people and air cargo, seaports with vessel cargo, postal, mail, express consignment, your FedEx, UPS groups and the like, cruise ships, pleasure boats, small aircraft. It's the whole gamut when it comes to entry points into the United States in different modes and pathways, how that presents itself. We employ, as the slide shows here, a layered approach. Now that is equally applied to all those different pathways. Starting on the cargo side, so advanced information. We receive manifest information on stuff coming in, whether it be by boat, by vessel, or by plane, or what have you, in advance. This is who's sending it. This is who's receiving it. This is what the product is. These are the requirements for it to come in under condition and so forth. We use that information twofold. We use it to adjudicate and clear legitimate cargo. Anything on the animal health side that is admissible and has market access in the United States, making sure that all the requirements are met. All the Animal Health Protection Act stuff is covered in terms of non-infectious requirements, statements, all the attributions that need for safe importation of legitimate goods. That information is also used to address the more smuggling type, the illicit network of this, the circumvention of due process and market access allowance, and attempting to bring things to the United States that are of risk and that are not permissible. So we use that information to narrow down, to find the higher risk pieces and go for the interceptions at the ports from that level. The same thing applies on the passenger side. Aircraft send us passenger manifests in advance. We use that to know who's coming, where are they coming from, where are they going, what are the inherent risks of any particular area or country where someone is coming from, and we can use that information to, again, focus resource and priority towards the higher risk venues. Layer that with bulk surveillance. So we always need to be testing our assumptions here and casting a wider net in terms of stopping the movement of illicit things. Bulk surveillance can be things like our canine program. We have the Beagle Brigade that's pretty well known. They're one of our most effective tools at illicit swine detection. That's one of their key scents that they're trained on. So we can deploy them to baggage carousels, mail facilities, land borders on vehicles and trucks, and they can help do a bulk surveillance method to detect things coming through in larger mass. Coupling that with our X-ray technology and other non-intrusive inspections, this helps us get a wider lens of interdiction. So it's that we're not relying solely on advanced information to drive all of our decision-making here and all of our prevention efforts. And lastly, I mean, and very close to what Dr. Sifford just covered, we also, of course, use the outreach. An informed trade and travel community is a good community, is a more compliant community, and is a more proactive in terms of prevention community. So we do a lot of effort with regard to the public-private partnerships here to ensure everyone can do their part and be aware of the risks and the threats and what comes with it. Next slide, please. So this is an example of a poster. This is actually Don't Pack a Pest or Don't Pack a Disease. This is a spinoff of what we call the Don't Pack a Pest program. So another joint USDA venture when it comes to outreach campaigns. This is posted in many different conspicuous locations at ports of entry, at where people deplane, where they gather their things, and so forth. But we're also focusing on the outbound side. We wanted to get this information as accessible and visible as possible. Beyond that, we have this also, to what Dr. Sifford said, in multiple languages. We're focusing on the Creole effect as well, or the Creole language, Spanish, English, to really cover as probably wide range of an audience as possible. It can be, we want it to be fairly succinct in that it gets the information out, but provides enough context and information that people understand not just the what, but a little bit of the why. Next slide, please. This is an example of a slide when any of you fly into the country internationally. We have a lot of what we call model ports, which is a large number of the larger airports now, where you have a lot more digital displays as you come into the customs federal inspection site. And this is one of the ones the beauty of digital displays is we can tailor and quickly implement or adjust language or notification at a few keystrokes. And so this is one of the ones we just refreshed. We always have these kinds of messages being communicated, but specific to the Dominican Republic, next day we're able to launch this out and have this immediately visible to the traveling public as people come in. And so this is something that you would see on one of those displays at these airports as you come in. Again, it's not just ASF. We always have things like that messaging there, but when we have a very specific or new threat come in, we can really emphasize that through something like this. Next slide, please. So I think what I want to employ when it comes to African swine fever is we have that layered approach for foreign amenable disease exclusion. First, I want to stress that we, as I'll show here in a minute, we do have a lot of emphasis and focus towards the Dominican Republic and employing a perimeter approach or peripheral approach here. We want to be very proactive in that when we have a general risk or threat in a particular area, that we're covering the next logical sequence of locations that could be the next to have a potential threat or risk, so that we're ahead of the curve there. So we employ that layered approach, cargo and people coming into the United States, using advanced information to target and select and clear both legitimate and illegitimate and stop illegitimate movement of goods. But what is the DR from the port of entry perspective? What is it presented in terms of a unique factor now that we have ASF detection in the Western Hemisphere? What new kind of vulnerabilities, risk factors are presented because of that? This is not new. Since 2018 with the East Asia outbreaks, we've been active with ASF, as many of your counterparts know, for quite some time. But what does this mean now? Well, a couple of the key points of focus are things like general aviation. Now, general aviation are your smaller non-commercial aircraft, your net jets, and not to call any company, but just a category of things, smaller fleet, Gulfstream jets, Falcons, things like that, that are flying from a lot of different any destination really, and they have a larger footprint of where they arrive into the United States. Now, we already have safeguards in place in this arena. Fixed-based operators are kind of the small airport operators that receive these aircraft when they arrive. We have customs officials at those locations to clear people and things into the country, but we also have those operators under compliance agreement to ensure all stores are purged, all waste, garbage, anything prohibited on board is properly safeguarded and disposed properly, either often through incineration or other approved methods that mitigate and eliminate the risk. So we really are adding extra focus into that level because we see this as another unique venue in that there's a lot of, and we're doing this at a Caribbean, Central America as a whole, is so that we're making sure anything coming in from that zone, we're actively addressing that the agreements are up to date, that we're physically there, we inspecting and making sure that that risk factor is addressed and closed out. Also, for the geographic locality of the DR and other things, even particularly with Puerto Rico, are small vessels. There's a lot of small vessel movement throughout the Caribbean, into Florida, into Puerto Rico, you name it, a lot of island moving and so forth. There's quite a few different efforts we're doing on that front. One of the larger pieces is Customs and Border Protection is a part of the Homeland Security, which also covers the U.S. Coast Guard and the Transportation Security Administration. We're working particularly on the vessel side with the U.S. Coast Guard and our CBP Air and Marine Office to ensure, one, full awareness of this risk threat. Yes, they're out there looking for the illicit drug narcotic loads being boated across from one location to another, but they add this, or they continue to, they've always had this, but they really have this as an added focus to their workplace when they're interdicting vessels throughout these areas, and they recognize what products are of risk. If there's anything on these boats, they know who to coordinate with. In many cases of Puerto Rico, that's with the US Department of Agriculture and CBP jointly, or with us, CBP specifically. But we want to make sure we have all of our resources, all hands on deck is what I really want to get at here, from a government approach to using all the resources we have to address this issue, this risk, and prevent it from coming in. I think the main stress I want to provide is that this is a focus, and you can see we're putting a lot of resource here, but do not be concerned with fatigue or complacency with other fade threats. Obviously, ASF in other countries that we know is already there, classical swine fever as well, and the whole gamut. We still have a full and active approach for foreign animal disease exclusion efforts as a whole, but also with some mobilization of resource to really ensure this Western Hemisphere presence is really acutely addressed as well. I could talk all day about this in terms of like how much we have committed to this, how important this is to one, CBP, Department of Homeland Security. I think what is also important to stress amongst all of that is our relationship with the Department of Agriculture. I am on the phone, on email, Teams, what have you, hourly, daily with USDA and with APHIS to address this issue. As Dr. Sifford showed, they really cover the risk assessment side of this. They promulgate the regulation, they set the policy to align to the risk. CBP then operationalizes all this. That's best delivered fully in tandem with each other, ensuring that we're always on the same page with the approach, with the communication, with how we do it. And so far to this juncture, it has been seamless and quite successful, not just on this front, but on a multitude of foreign animal disease exclusion fronts, and on the pest side, on the plant pest side as well. I think that's the lion's share of this. There's a lot of things I could cover in more detail. In terms of cruise lines, not a huge risk we've seen there historically yet. Mail the same, particularly from these theaters, but not from necessarily other areas. Regulated garbage, that was touched on by Dr. Sifford as well. One of the key areas of focus for us, and that really ties to the general aviation side as well, is making sure we can go after all the cargo and people we want, but if there's waste coming in, surplus catering and waste, and it's not handled appropriately, that's as viable of a risk threat as any, and we recognize that. So that is a critical piece to what we're doing.